The village of Nyasha and the generous butcher. In the hills where the wind whistles lullabies and mango trees gossip with the clouds, sat the quiet village of Nyasha. It was the kind of place where chickens crossed the road and everyone knew exactly why. In Nyasha, goats outnumbered people, and mobile phones were so rare they were considered more magical than rain in dry season. The villagers were simple folk, honest, hardworking, and incredibly loud during market days. They grew maize, yams, cassava, and gossip. Especially gossip. If you sneezed on Monday, everyone would know by Tuesday, and by Wednesday, someone would say it was a curse from your great-aunt's neighbor's chicken. But of all the things Nyasha was known for, its scenic hills, its thriving cassava, and its annual Goat Appreciation Festival, meat had recently taken center stage. Enter Kwame. No one really knew where he came from. One day the old butcher, Babu Tembo, simply stopped opening his shop. Some say he retired, others say he finally went vegan after a goat chewed his beard. Either way, within a week, a new face stood behind the wooden counter, cleaver in hand, smile wide enough to rival the morning sun. Kwame was charming. Too charming. His eyes twinkled, his laughter was infectious, and his meat. Oh, his meat. Soft as gossip, rich as a chief's wedding stew. Even the village elders, known for their lack of teeth and surplus of complaints, nodded in approval. This meat, it slides down the throat like a slippery prayer, one old man said, smacking his lips with a grin. Prices were low, suspiciously low. A full goat leg cost less than a basket of bitter leaf. The villagers didn't question it. Who asks questions when stew is that soft and change is left in your pocket? Well, someone did. His name was Adisa. Adisa was Nyasha's resident bean farmer, part-time village fool, and full-time question asker. He wore mismatched sandals for balance, spoke to his beans before planting them, and was banned from the local debating group after turning every meeting into a stand-up comedy show. If the goat meat is cheaper than cabbage, he said one day, should we start milking cows for petrol? The villagers laughed. That's what Adisa did, he made people laugh. But even as he cracked jokes, his one good eyebrow, the other had been singed off during an unfortunate candle-lighting mishap, arched suspiciously at Kwame's butchery. Every day, Kwame opened early and closed late. His cleaver moved like it had rhythm, slicing with precision that made Adisa whisper, "That's not just a butcher, that's a meat ninja." And yet, something felt off. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills and the sky turned a bruised purple, a scream rang out. Not a regular scream, no, this one had echo. It bounced between the trees like a ghost looking for attention. A few people paused, looked around, and then shrugged. Maybe a child stepped on a thorn, someone said. Probably a hyena near the forest line, said another. They returned to their cooking pots and evening gossip. But the next morning, Nuru, a traveling herbalist who had been passing through the village, was gone. Just like that. Her belongings were still in the hut she'd rented. Her herbs were neatly arranged. Her goat, a sour-tempered creature named Justice, was found wandering near the mango grove, half-shaved and looking personally offended. Whoever did this clearly has no respect for goat dignity, muttered Adisa as he examined the half-naked animal. The village whispered, yes, but not too loudly. Kwame, meanwhile, offered free soup bones to the first 5 customers that day. And just like that, the scream, the disappearance, the goat's awkward haircut, all faded into the background. Except for Adisa. He kept watching. He saw how Kwame never seemed to receive fresh livestock, yet always had meat. How his apron was always spotless in the morning, but by evening looked like he'd gone swimming in stew. And how, despite selling so much meat, no one ever saw delivery carts arrive. Even beans take a journey, Adisa mumbled. How does his meat just appear? He started keeping a notebook. A small, battered one labeled, Suspects 2, the meat files. Inside, he jotted observations like, No goats herd at night. Smells like onion, but why no onion bags? Kwame wears new boots every 2 weeks. Saw Kwame with a bag bigger than a goat, and it moved. Adisa even tried questioning Kwame once, casually leaning on the butcher's counter and saying, "Brother Kwame, this meat of yours, what's your secret? Is it witchcraft, massage therapy, or do the animals fall apart from heartbreak?" Kwame laughed. "Oh, Adisa. You and your stories. Just good seasoning and harder work than you've ever done on your bean farm." Adisa smiled back. But inside, he felt a chill. Then came the night of the second scream. This time closer, sharper, like it had teeth. The next day, a young traveler, Sefiu, was nowhere to be found. His donkey remained tied outside the village inn, looking extremely unimpressed. But Sefiu? Gone. 2 people, 2 screams. And both after dark. Adisa decided, enough was enough. That evening, as the sun slid down the horizon like oil of Ugali, Adisa packed his bag with a lantern, notebook, and his cousin's rusty catapult, just in case. He told no one. Not even his beans. Tonight, he whispered, we find out why Kwame's meat is cheaper than Sin's on a Sunday. As he made his way toward the butchery, he passed the old tree near the crossroads. Something fluttered against the bark. A piece of cloth. Torn. Red-stained. With a symbol stitched in gold thread, an herbalist mark. It was Neru's. Adisa's heart thudded like a drum possessed. The air was heavy. The wind didn't whisper anymore, it washed. Somewhere behind the butchery, a soft metallic sound echoed. Clink. Clink. Adisa crept closer. A favor gone weird. Morning broke over Naasha with a rooster crow that sounded suspiciously hoarse, almost as if the bird had been up all night rehearsing. Adisa woke before the sun, packed a sack of cassava roots, and started down the dusty path toward the market. Halfway there he realized he'd misjudged his own harvest. The cassava pile was twice as big as his bag. Beans don't betray me like this, he grumbled, wiping sweat from his brow. He needed a larger sack, fast. The only shop open at that hour was Kwame's butchery, its wooden shutters flung wide as if the building itself were yawning. Kwame was already inside, happily humming a tune that sounded cheerful, but fell 2 notes short of sinister. Morning, brother Adisa. Kwame called, brandishing a cleaver like it was a conductor's baton. You're up before the goats. I could say the same to you, Adisa replied, trying to keep his tone light. Listen, my cassava staging a prison break. Do you have an empty flour sack I can borrow? Kwame's eyes flashed. Of course, of course. Anything for my best customer. He disappeared behind a hanging curtain of drying skins and returned with a large, off-white sack. It looked clean. Mostly. But when Adisa took it, the bottom slushed, an odd, mushy wobble, like warm porridge trapped inside cloth. Adisa forced a smile. Oh, it's not leaking stew, is it? Kwame laughed too hard, slapped the sack twice, then winked. Just leftover water, my friend. Washes right out. Right. Unexpected discovery. 10 minutes later Adisa trudged up the hill, cassava now secured in Kwame's generously weird sack. The sun climbed, cicadas started their daily choir practice, and Adisa's thoughts wandered back to the unexplained screams and missing travelers. He barely noticed the metallic smell drifting from the bag until it grew so sharp it overpowered the scent of ripe mangoes overhead. This cassava's not that talented, he muttered. He stopped beneath the broad branches of Naasha's oldest mango tree, the village's unofficial parliament chamber. He set the bag down, loosened the knots, and peeked inside. Cassava, yes, but wedged between 2 roots was something pinkish-gray, the size and shape of a large caterpillar. Adisa's stomach lurched. He tugged it free. A human thumb. Neatly severed. A string was tied round its base, and a small scrap of butcher paper clung to it, reading in unusually neat handwriting. Return for refund. K. Adisa's knees turned to pap. The thumb twitched, or maybe that was his imagination doing backflips. He hurled it back into the sack, stumbled 3 steps, then spun in a small circle like a panicked goat. Breathe, Adisa. Beans need you alive, he whispered, but his own voice shook. Village whispers. He wasn't the only one with jitters. By noon, word of Adisa's gruesome discovery had zipped across Nyasha faster than a rumor about free beer. Children reenacted the thumb incident with yam slices at the well. Stallholders leaned over piles of tomatoes. Did you hear? First missing travelers, now missing fingers. I knew that kebab tasted like no goat I've ever met. My husband said it was extra tender. Extra tender, my foot. By evening, the gossip had ricocheted off every mud wall, causing echoes of suspicion. Housewives stirred their stews with new caution, sniffing the broth like suspicious cats. Hunters weighed their fresh kills against the memory of Kwame's discount prices and frowned. The Skeptics Club. The center of all chatter was, naturally, beneath the mango tree. That was where Grandmother Julia held informal court on her favorite woven chair, a throne of frayed grass but absolute authority. She was small, bent like a question mark, yet crackled with wit sharper than a spearhead. Beside her squatted Malaika, the wandering spice trader whose patchwork cloak smelled of cardamom, star anise, and dusty roads. She had arrived only 2 days earlier with rumors from distant valleys, and perfect timing for drama. Adisa arrived, sack in hand, face pale as uncooked ugali. He set the bag gently at Julia's feet. It's in there, he said, voice thin. Grandmother Julia, who claimed she had delivered half the village at birth, clicked her tongue. Boy, speak clearly. My ears are older than Moses' sandals. What's in where? Adisa untied the sack, folded back the cloth, and revealed the thumb on its polite note. Gasps rippled outward. Even the mango tree seemed to stiffen. Malaika leaned closer, eyes bright. Oh. You found a thumb with a receipt. How considerate. She poked it with her spice spoon. Firm texture. Not goat. Adisa gagged. Grandmother Julia adjusted her shawl. Well, children, what do we think? Faulty butchery or fresh bad juju? One farmer muttered, could be leftovers from the hyenas. Another countered, hyenas don't tie notes, genius. Malaika sprinkled a pinch of cumin onto the ground as if seasoning the conversation. We could send it to the city police. Adisa shook his head. By the time they hike here, we'll all be soup. Grandmother Julia reached for her walking stick, carved from ebony, rumored to contain secrets of the ancestors. She tapped the thumb gently. Tisk, young folk today panic too fast. In my day thumbs were personal property, not public spectacle. She leveled a glare at the gathering crowd. But let's be logical, if Kwame's meat is cheap, soft, and suspiciously abundant, and travelers keep disappearing, she let the sentence hang like laundry in the wind. Malaika finished it for her, then maybe we're dining on more than goat. A collective shudder went through the onlookers. But is a single thumb proof? Asked a skinny herder. Thumb today, leg tomorrow, Grandmother Julia said. How many pieces do you need before you admit the puzzle's ugly? Seeing the fear settle across faces, Malaika attempted humor. Well, for what it's worth, thumbs contain almost no fat. Very poor to meat. Grandmother Julia swatted her with the walking stick. Girl, now's not the time for recipe reviews. Rising tension. Over the next week, Nyasha changed. The night market, once bustling with smoky grills and loud bargaining, shrunk to a timid row of half-hearted vendors. Lanterns dimmed earlier. Parents dragged children indoors after sunset. Goats huddled together like they were drafting escape plans. Kwame, though. Kwame stayed the same, but that sameness now felt menacing. Each dawn he opened his doors, apron spotless. Each dusk he closed them, apron splattered burgundy. He hummed as he swept the threshold, whistled as he honed cleavers that glinted like cold moonlight. And he always had meat, mountains of meat, though no one saw livestock arrive. Adisa watched from the shadows, notebook in hand. Day 12, night market half empty. Kwame bought more salt. Preserving. Day 13, 2 travelers missing on Forest Road. Goat named Justice still furious. Day 14, cleaver sounds like a drum. Whistling tune, same 3 notes, over and over. That afternoon grandmother Jelia summoned Adisa and Malaika to her yard. Chickens scratched, dust swirled, and her kettle hissed like an impatient snake. Children, time is short, she said. Fear is chewing this village bone by bone. We must act. Malaika's eyebrows lifted. Storm the butchery. Grandmother Julia snorted. And get sliced into signature steaks. No. We need proof bigger than a thumb and rumors. Adisa gulped tea that tasted like pepper and regret. How do we get proof? By watching, Julia replied. Tonight, the moon is thin. Kwame will think darkness hides him. We will be darkness that sees. Malaika grinned. I've spied on sultans with worse tempers. Count me in. Adisa's heart banged like a borrowed drum. I'm in, but could we maybe start with partial darkness? Like late afternoon. I prefer daylight for adventures. Julia cackled. Courage isn't daylight, boy. Courage is carrying your lantern into someone else's shadows. She pointed her stick at him. Meet by the mango tree at midnight. Wear dark clothes. Bring no beans, they rattle. Midnight prep. That evening, Nyasha pretended at normal. Women pounded maize, men played bar under flickering lamps, children chased fireflies. Somewhere a goat bleated the national anthem again, a sound now more eerie than cute. Inside Adisa's heart, nerves fluttered. He dressed in his least colorful tunic, still bright blue, his most serious garment. He pocketed a small lantern, a stub of chalk, and a notebook, now titled Operation Thumb Thief. He almost brought the rusty catapult, but remembered last time he used it and nearly took out his own ear. He settled for a sturdy stick. Malaika appeared first under the mango tree, cloak shimmering with spices like constellations. Grandmother Julia arrived next, moving slower than the other 2 but with a posture that dared gravity to complain. They waited for the village to fall asleep. Crickets chirped. Night wind sighed. Then they moved. The silent march. They took the back path, slipping through banana groves, ducking behind termite mounds. Adisa's heart thumped so loud he feared Kwame could butcher it on sound alone. The moon, a thin silver toothbrush in the sky, offered just enough light to stumble by. As they neared the butchery, the humming reached them, soft, casual. Kwame again. A rhythmic scrape of metal against stone followed, sending sparks inside Adisa's imagination. They crouched behind a stack of empty feed sacks near the back door. Through a gap in the planks, they could see the work table. Kwame stood over it, sleeves rolled, a cleaver in one hand and something lumpy on the wood. A burlap bundle lay open at his feet. Dark shapes spilled out, long, pale, unmistakably human arms. Adisa's stomach tried to flee through his throat. He clamped a hand over his mouth. Kwame lifted one arm, inspected the fingers, nodded as if judging carrots for freshness, and set it aside. He reached for another. Hummed his same 3-note tune. Grandmother Julia whispered, "Ancestors witness us." Malaika's eyes burned. "We need proof and people," she breathed. "Take something. Then we wake the village." Adisa nodded weakly. The nearest piece lay on a low shelf by the window. He slipped his hand through the gap, grasped a gold ring still on its owner's severed finger, and tugged. It came free with a sleek pop that would echo in nightmares for years. He almost swooned. Malaika grabbed the finger, wrapped it in cloth, and tucked it into her pouch like a rare spice. Go, Grandmother Julia hissed. But Locke was a drunken goat tonight. Kwame paused mid-hum. His nostrils flared, sensing the shift of breeze, or the borrowed soul of the ring. He spun toward the window. For one endless breath, their eyes met. His widened, shock colliding with fury. Who's there? Adisa's legs chose flight before his brain voted. He bolted, lantern slapping against his hip, breath ragged. Malaika sprinted beside him, cloak billowing spice-scented terror. Behind them, Grandmother Julia moved at surprising speed, stick-tapping death like a metronome of doom. A crash of metal, Kwame's shout, then heavy footsteps followed. The chase was on, through yam rows, over goat pens, past the indignant rooster still rehabbing its voice. Dogs barked. Someone cursed from inside a hut. Near the mango tree, Malaika skidded to a halt. Split, she whispered. Meet at the well. Adisa veered left toward the schoolhouse. Julia ducked right behind the granary. Kwame's footsteps thundered after Adisa, cleaver glinting when moonlight caught it. Adisa huddled the fence, tripped on his own stick, roared, came up running. He reached the well, a stone ring overlooking the valley. Malaika emerged from shadows, breathing hard but steady. Moments later Julia appeared, not even winded. They huddled close. The finger-wit ring lay between them, grisly and undeniable. Malaika spoke first, voice low. Gossip is now evidence. Julia nodded. Tomorrow we gather the council. No more discount stew for Nyasha. Adisa shivered. And Kwame. Tonight he hunts shadows, Julia answered. Tomorrow the sun hunts him. The village bell suddenly clanged in the distance. Someone had spotted the commotion near the butchery. Lanterns flickered to life across Nyasha like jittery fireflies. Dogs howled. A goat, possibly Justice, screamed its displeasure. Let them see, Julia said, straightening. Fear spreads faster than is meat. They turned toward the growing lights, ready to wake Nyasha with a truth too awful for whispers, and a finger that proved it. Midnight shadows and lantern light. When the stealth squad gathers. Night in Nyasha felt like someone had poured dark ink over the hills. A weak crescent moon hid behind ragged clouds, and crickets sang like shaky drummers. It was the perfect hour for people who wanted to see trouble without being seen themselves. Under the ancient mango tree, Adisa and Malaika waited, breath steaming in the cool air. Two goat herders joined them, tall Keto, whose shoulders were as wide as a barn door, and wiry Jabari, famous for whistling so well that goats obeyed like choir boys. Each man carried a cracked lantern and an even more cracked sense of bravery. Malaika laid out the plan, drawing a crooked map in the dust with a stick. Sneak along the cassava field. Reach the back of Kwame's smokehouse, a windowless shed that squatted behind the butchery like a guilty secret. Watch. Record. Leave quietly. Quietly, she repeated, glaring at Adisa. Adisa raised a hand like a schoolboy. I'm as silent as a bean sprout. That's not silent, Malaika muttered. Keto and Jabari merely nodded. They were villagers of few words, their goats usually did the talking. The final squad member arrived on 4 hoofs, Senator, the village's most opinionated goat, now wearing a rope collar. Jabari claimed the animal could sniff danger. Adisa claimed it could also sniff papaya peels from half a mile, which was less heroic. Still, the team welcomed any extra eyes or nostrils. Jabari whispered to Senator, no noise, understand. Senator stared back, chewing imaginary cud. Lanterns were trimmed low, ropes tightened, and hats hammered like festival drums as the stealth squad slipped into the cassava field, stalks brushing their legs like curious fingers. To a smokehouse in shadow. Kwame's smokehouse sat apart from other buildings, its timber walls stained black by years of smoldering fires. No windows, just one solid door reinforced with rusty iron bands. A thin chimney coughed oily smoke into the night sky. The squad flattened themselves behind a stack of wood. From there they could see the smokehouse door, and soon realized they were not alone. Two hooded figures crept up the path, each dragging a burlap bundle that bumped and thumped over rocks. The bundles were roughly human-shaped and disturbingly silent. "Those sacks have knees," Adisa whispered, voice shaking. "Shoo," Malaika hissed. The hooded duo knocked once, 3 sharp raps that echoed like bones hitting a coffin. The door opened a slit. A strip of lamplight revealed Kwame's face, calm, focused, almost bored. He waved them inside. From their hiding spot, the stealth squad heard wet dragging sounds, a hushed conversation, then the metallic clink of coins. Moments later, the two figures left empty-handed, melted into darkness, and disappeared toward the river. Keto's knuckles whitened around his lantern. "So that's where the meat comes from?" Malaika nodded grimly. "And we're about to see what he does next." 3 ungoat-like ankles. Inside the smokehouse, lights flickered through a gap in the roof. The squad climbed a pile of firewood to peek between warped planks. Kwame walked under a single oil lamp. Sharp knives gleamed on a wooden rack. He rolled one burlap bundle onto a blood-dark table and cut the rope. The cloth fell away. It was not a goat. 2 pale ankles with chipped red toenail polish stuck out, an image so wrong that Adisa nearly fell off the woodpile. Kwame hummed his 3-note tune, lifted his cleaver, and began to butcher with cold precision. Flesh slapped. Bone cracked. The sight was enough to freeze breath in lungs and prayers on tongues. Malaika scribbled frantic notes on a scrap of paper. Human ankles. Red polish. Evidence. Jovari whispered, "We need to grab proof and run." Adisa agreed, though his knees did not, they quivered like jelly left in the sun. For a goat named Senator. Just then, Senator, tied to a stump below, decided he'd had enough gloom. Maybe the smell of blood upset him, or maybe he disliked Kwame's humming. Whatever the reason, Senator threw back his head and bleated Nyasha's entire village anthem, loud, proud, and off-key. Moare Rio Nyasho. Land of beans and goayot. The smokehouse went silent. Kwame froze mid-swing. His eyes narrowed. Adisa hissed, "Senator, you ill-timed trumpet." The goat replied with a high-pitched vibrato that could shatter clay pots. Inside, Kwame snuffed his lamp. Darkness curtained the room. A bolt slid, the door creaked. "Move," Malaika whispered. 5 the chase of lanterns and sandals. The squad leapt off the woodpile. Keto yanked Senator's rope, but the goat rebelled, digging in hooves and repeating the anthem's chorus. Kwame burst from the smokehouse, cleaver glinting. "Who's there? Show yourselves." Jabari flung a handful of cassava leaves in Kwame's direction, hardly a weapon but a decent distraction. Then he, Keto, and Malaika ran, lanterns swinging like drunk fireflies. Adisa followed, except his foot snagged the root. His sandal, size 42, smells of fear, went flying into the night, landing with a slap some distance away. Barefoot, he scrambled after the others, each stone a personal insult to his soul. Kwame chased, shouting curses and promises of free meat no one wanted. His heavy boots pounded the path. Shadows stretched and tangled under swinging lights. Keto shouted, "Split at the granary. Circle back to the mango tree." Adisa veered left, Malaika right, goat herders straight ahead. Lanterns bobbed like panic stars. Senator, finally freed when the rope slipped Keto's grip, galloped behind Adisa, anthem now switching to improvised jazz notes. Kwame hesitated, 3 targets plus 1 musical goat. He chose the lantern shining brightest, Malaika's. He lunged that way. Adisa saw the danger. Heart booming, he snatched a pebble and hurled it. Luck guided his throw. The stone pinged off Kwame's cleaver with a metallic clang. Kwame spun, eyes wild. Adisa waved his arms. Over here, butcher boy. Now Kwame came for him. Adisa bolted toward the schoolyard, lungs burning, barefoot steps slapping dirt. He ducked through a half-built fence. Kwame followed but snagged his coat on a nail. Precious seconds gained. Malaika and the herders regrouped near the mango tree. Keto whizzed, "Where's Adisa?" A moment later Adisa arrived, one sandal missing, clothes ripped, but alive. Senator trotted proudly behind him, bleating a victory note. "Roll call," Adisa said, panting. Everyone breathing. Goat included. They counted heads and hooves, for humans, 1 goat. Score, survivor 5, butcher 0. 6. The Ledger of Horrors. Adisa suddenly remembered something clutched in his fist. During his frantic escape through the smokehouse yard, his hand had brushed a pile of rubbish where he'd instinctively grabbed the first movable object. He now opened his fingers. A torn ledger page, stained but readable. Under the moonlight they saw columns. Name, weight, kg, tender score. Nuru Saifo 58.9.5. Sefiu Boko 73.8.7. Tiwa Anin 62.9.2. Caleb Odiambo 87.9. Malaika's breath caught. He kept records, like livestock. Grandmother Julia, drawn by the commotion, hobbled up just then, lantern swinging. "Children, you sound like a hyena wedding. What have you done now?" They held out the ledger page. She read slowly, lips tightening. "This," she whispered, "is the proof Nyasha cannot ignore." A distant roar echoed, Kwame, discovering his ledger missing. Adisa gulped. "He'll come for it." Julia raised her cane like a general's sword. "Let him come. Tomorrow the sun will rise on truth. But tonight we hide this page where evil can't find it." She tucked the paper into her blouse pocket right beside her heart. Thunder rumbled, though clouds said no storm was due. Some in Nyasha believed thunder like that wasn't weather but ancestors clapping approval or warning. The stealth squad, goat included, followed Grandmother Julia toward her hut. Behind them, Kwame's shouts raked the night, promising vengeance sharper than his cleaver. In Adisa's head, a single thought repeated with every barefoot step. Proof bought with fear must be protected with courage. The ground trembled slightly, maybe just Adisa's blistered foot, maybe something darker crawling through Nyasha's soil. Either way, the village anthem would sound different come dawn. And the tender score ledger. It beat beneath Julia's shawl like a stolen drum, waiting for sunrise and judgments yet unseen. The emergency palaver. Dawn in Nyasha arrived with birdsong and one extremely angry goat, Senator, of course. But unlike other mornings, villagers didn't head to their farms or open market stalls. Instead, word flew like wildfire on windy paper. Julia is calling a palaver. The big kind. By mid-morning, the village square was packed. Young and old, farmers and fishers, bean sellers, and even that one man who always claimed to be between jobs, everyone gathered. The fire pit in the center had been lit, flames crackling like they were eager for gossip. Grandmother Julia stood near it, cane planted like a flag. Her shawl fluttered in the breeze like the wings of justice. Behind her stood Malaika, Adisa, Keto, and Jibori, forming what the children were already calling the Goat Patrol. Senator the goat sat beside them chewing a stick with the serious air of a court clerk. Julia raised her hand. Silence. The crowd hushed. Even the breeze paused to listen. Julia spoke clearly. "My people, we gather not for song or story today. We gather for truth. A truth too long hidden under cheap stew and lowered voices." She held up a folded, stained paper, the ledger page. "Last night, for villagers, and one musical goat witnessed evil in the smokehouse of Kwame the butcher. She paused. And they brought proof. Gasps. Murmurs. A baby cried, not from fear, but probably because someone had forgotten her mashed pawpaw. Julia waved the paper. This ledger lists names of missing people, locals and travelers, alongside something called a tender score. Her voice grew hard. Our meat, brothers and sisters, may have been bought with human life. A ripple of horror rolled through the crowd. One woman fainted onto a basket of mangoes. A man whispered, "Bought my stew last week." Julia's eyes narrowed. Where is Kwame? Several villagers turned. There he stood, near the edge of the crowd, apron folded over his arm, face blank as cold porridge. Bring him, Julia said simply. Two Kwame cornered. 4 men stepped forward. Kato included. Together, they gently but firmly escorted Kwame to the firelight. He didn't resist. He didn't blink. He just stared at the flames like they were telling secrets only he could hear. Now under the fiery glow, Kwame's face looked older, lines cut deep into his cheeks, and his ever-smiling eyes, so famous for their warmth, were shadowed and glassy. Do you deny what we found? Julia asked. Kwame opened his mouth, closed it, then sighed like the weight of the entire mountain had been sitting on his chest. I do not, he said. The crowd stirred again. A tomato hit the ground near his feet, followed by an angry shout, so you admit it. You turned us into cannibals. Julia raised her cane. No more shouting. He will speak. And we will hear. Even truth can come from bloody lips. Kwame took a deep breath, then began. 3. The backstory bombshell. I was not always a butcher, he said. I was a teacher. In a town far from here. My younger sister, Oma, was my only family. Smart girl. Too smart. One day, she overheard something she shouldn't have, men discussing shipments. Of people. He paused. That night, she disappeared. Gone from her dormitory without a trace. His fingers twitched around his apron. I searched. For weeks. For months. Then one evening, they came to me. Men in suits, smiles as fake as powdered yam. They showed me a photo of Oma. Alive. Frightened. Then they gave me a choice. He looked up, eyes glittering. Take a job. Work in a remote village. Accept deliveries. Make them disappear. In exchange, Oma would be fed, kept alive. Any mistake, and they would cut her into parts. Gasps. This time no one fainted. Everyone was too frozen with shock. I tried to refuse, Kwame continued, voice breaking. But I got a box the next week. Inside was a braid of her hair. And a note, still alive. Keep going. He looked at Julia. So I butchered. The deliveries kept coming. I stopped counting after 12. I was promised it would end. But it didn't. He dropped his head. I know what I've done. I deserve your judgment. But Oma is still out there. Somewhere. I don't know where anymore. A silence heavier than a full yam sack hung over the crowd. Even Senator the goat stopped chewing. For the moral crossroads. Julia finally spoke. You killed Kwame. Whether by fear or by choice, you did. We cannot ignore that. Kwame nodded, tears now flowing freely. But, she continued, what you've said changes things. She turned to the villagers. We stand at a fork. One path leads to the city police. We hand him over, wash our hands, and go back to our bins. She pointed her cane west, toward the city. The other path is harder. We go after the syndicate. We fight together. For justice. For Oma. For all who were taken. The villagers murmured. Some looked unsure. Others looked furious. One man raised his hand. Why should we risk ourselves for a man who turned us into meat-eaters of our own kind? Julia nodded. Valid. But what about the ones still out there? If we do nothing, the evil spreads. And Nyasha will be remembered not for cassava or goats, but for silence. Adisa stepped forward, clearing his throat dramatically. I just want to say, next time someone says finger-licking good, I'm running the other way. Laughter. It burst out of the tension like a dam breaking. For a moment, the village breathed. Even Kwame gave a broken smile. 5 decision under firelight. By evening, the villagers had voted they would not send Kwame to the city just yet. Not until they knew who was pulling his strings. Not until Omar was found or mourned. They would rally. Investigate. Send scouts. Set traps. Shine the lanterns into the cracks where crime thought it could hide. Kwame was put under guarded house arrest, not as punishment, but protection. Many still hated him. A few pitied him. All feared what else they would learn. Grandmother Julia closed the meeting with words no one would ever forget. Sometimes, monsters wear aprons. And sometimes, men break under fear. But we must rise, not with pitchforks, but with courage sharp enough to cut lies from truth. As the crowd slowly left, torches flickering in their hands, Adisa turned to Malaika. We faced goats, thumbs, and truth uglier than a boiled yam. What's next? Malaika smiled darkly. Next. We dig deeper. Senator bleated in agreement. The mission nobody wanted but everyone needed. Nyasha had never seen such purposeful chaos. 3 days after the firelight confession, Grandmother Julia's yard looked like a war council run by goat herders, maps drawn in cassava flour, ropes coiled beside cooking pots, and Adise pacing in circles wide enough to qualify as cardio. Malaika dropped a satchel of pungent powders. Spice bombs, she explained. Toss them at bad men, watch ice water like a soap opera. Kato tested a slingshot the size of a fishing pole. Pebble hits from 50 paces, he boasted. Or 40, if goat bombs the cart. Speaking of the goat, Senator, he was being fitted with makeshift reins and a tiny bronze bell. Jabari whispered encouragement, you are no ordinary goat. You are horsepower with opinions. The target. A crumbling colonial lookout perched on Kigogo Hill, 10 kilometers north. Rumor said the syndicate used it as a holding pen before shipping people to far-off markets of misery. If Omar was alive, she would be inside those stone walls. Grandmother Julia tapped her cane for quiet. Remember, children, courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is doing the job while your knees gossip about running away. Adisa exhaled. My knees are practically publishing a newspaper. Night 4. The stealth squad, now 6 souls and 1 goat, rode out. Senator pulled a small 2-wheel cart loaded with lanterns, ropes, extra sandals, Adisa insisted, and a pot of Malaikas, chili of last resort. By moonlight they resembled traveling entertainers, or the least intimidating army ever assembled. 2 hilltop hijinks, lanterns, ledges, and a goat-powered cart. Kigogo Hill was a stubborn slab of rock winding up through misty pines. Halfway up, the carts will hit a rut. Senator dug his hoofs, refusing to budge until Jabari sang the village anthem in goat language, a series of melodic bleats that echoed like broken trumpets. Senator, appeased, resumed the climb. At the summit the lookout ruin loomed, thick walls, a rusted gate, 2 sentries with rifles and expressions carved from boredom. Kato whispered, I count 2 guards outside, unknown inside. Malaika pressed a tiny pouch into his hand. Spice bomb. Aim for faces, not dinner. Plan, Jabari and Kato create distraction, Adisa, Malaika, and Julia sleep inside, free Omar, unlock main gate, stage go wrong getaway. Simple. Foolproof. Famous last words. Phase 1, distraction. Kato lobbed a spice bomb that popped like a disgruntled coconut. A cloud of Tamarikayan death mist engulfed the guards. They coughed, eyes streaming, firing aimlessly into night. Jabari whooped, waved a lantern, and sprinted down a side path, leading the half-blind sentries on a goose-go chase. Phase 2, infiltration. Adisa scaled a crumbling wall, sandals squeaking. Malaika followed with cat-like grace. Julia didn't climb. She found a loose board in the gate, whacked it once with her cane, and walked in. Age has perks, she muttered. Inside, corridor smelled of damp stone and dread. A single hurricane lamp revealed 3 locked cages. In the last sat Oma, thin, alert, but very much alive. She recognized Kwame's name at once, eyes filling with hope and questions. Adisa fumbled with keys taken from a peg. Wrong key, finally right key. The lock popped. Oma stepped out, straightened her shoulders. Let's go take back the night, she said, voice steady despite months of fear. 3 chaos erupts, pepper, pebbles, and an unscheduled goat solo. Alarm bells clanged. One of the half-blind guards must have blundered into a gong. Syndicate thugs poured from side rooms, 6, 7, maybe 8. Too many for polite introductions. Kato reappeared, slingshot twanging. Pebbles stunk on shins and foreheads. Malaika flicked 2 more spice bombs, sudden sandstorms of chilly fury. Men screamed, rubbing eyes that felt on fire. Grandmother Julia swung her cane with surgeon accuracy, smacking knees. Old bones, sharp aim, she quipped. Oma picked up a dropped club, proving kidnapping hadn't dulled her courage. She covered Adisa, who wrestled the gate chain. Clink, clank, stuck. Outside, Senator, startled by the ruckus, bolted. The cart lurched downhill without passengers, gathering speed. Adisa shouted, someone catch our Uber. Jabari sprinted alongside, grabbed the reins, and hauled the goat to a skidding stop inches from a cliff. Senator snorted, offended by the brakes. With the gates finally open, Adisa waved the prisoners out, plus for weary travelers. They piled onto the cart. Nyasha's squad clung wherever they could, Kato pushing behind, Julia perched like a queen, Malaika and Oma gripping the sides, Adisa up front yelling, Senator, engage turbo. Senator obliged, downhill momentum plus goat determination rocketed the cart along the rocky trail. Bandits staggered after them, half-blind and pepper-coated, firing wild shots. One bullet pinged off the pot of chili of last resort, which promptly slashed onto a pursuing thug, sending him screaming in culinary agony. Halfway down the hill the cart hit another rut. A wheel flew off, bouncing ahead like it had urgent business elsewhere. Cart tipped but miraculously landed upright on 3 wheels. Adisa lost a sandal, size 42, now extra seasoned by fear. They rattled into moonlit fields, bandits fading behind. For justice, from rope to restorative circle. By sunrise, a search party from Nyasha, alerted by Jabari's prearranged signal fires, met the returning heroes. Syndicate thugs who chased too far were captured by locals armed with farming tools and righteous rage. Those still at Kigogo were rounded up later by city police, summoned via Malaika's traveling merchant network. Back in Nyasha, the public square transformed into a justice circle. No gallows, no cages, just community eyes, a blazing midday sun, and elders ready to weigh souls. Oma, draped in a borrowed kikoi, stood beside Kwame. Brother and sister clasped hands, tears tracing matching cheekbones. Grandmother Julia addressed the gathering, Kwame's crimes are heavy. But so is the chain that forced his knife. We do not excuse, yet we believe in mending, not simply cutting away. After long debate, and one fiery speech from the tomato-throwing woman, who insisted eternal dishwashing duty be part of any sentence, a decision Kwame would live under supervision at the village edge, dedicating every sunrise to carpentry, building new houses for families of the lost. Profits from his fields, formerly the butchery grounds, would fund schooling for orphans. He would eat no meat for 10 years, a daily reminder of the cost hidden in cheap stew. Kwame bowed, voice rough, I accept. And I will build until my hands forget the weight of a cleaver. Even the angriest villagers felt a small stone lift from their hearts. Revenge makes you chew forever, justice lets you swallow and heal. 5. The Great Vegetarian Bonfire. Night fell, and Naasha gathered at the communal pit where sorrow once simmered. Tonight, flames licked a giant cauldron of groundnut pumpkin stew, bean fritters, and roasted maize. No meat. Not even fish with suspicious toenails. Keto raised the god of millet brew. 2. Fresh starts. Children giggled as Jabari invented new lyrics, no more mystery meat for me, just spinach and sweet pea. Adisa, ladling soup, shouted, try the tofu cubes, guaranteed not to be Uncle Toffee. Laughter erupted, loud enough to scare clouds from the moon. Malaika set up a spice booth, giving out free pinches. Legal highs, she winked. Even Senator enjoyed celebrity status, crowned with marigolds and given an honorary title, Minister of Unexpected Anthems. As embers crackled, Oma stepped forward. She thanked the village, voice trembling with gratitude and lingering grief. You saved me. You saved yourselves. Let this fire burn away every shadow left behind. Grandmother Julia sealed the night with a proverb old as the hills, when the pot of lies is broken, truth feeds the whole village. 6. Legacy, legend, and lantern light. Months passed. Crops grew. New houses rose, the hammering rhythm of Kwame's repentance. Travelers again stopped in Naasha, drawn by tales of courage, and safe stew. Adisa, never one to hear a story, wandered from market to market performing the goat, the thumb, and the tender score. He acted out Senator's cat sprint, he mimicked Julia's cane wax, he even carried a replica sandal labeled Exhibit A, Smells of Fear. Audiences roared and, more importantly, remembered the lesson. Cheap can be costly. Ask questions. Hold your lantern high. Other villages formed lantern squads, volunteer watchers who patrolled markets for suspicious stalls. Word of the busted syndicate spread, putting criminals on edge from the coast to the high plateau. Naasha itself added a line to its anthem, courtesy of Senator's melodic misfires. Secrets fear the light we raise, in goat-drawn carts or humble ways. 7. Hopeful tagline at dawn. One early morning, as orange bruised the rim of night, Adisa climbed the new watchtower he'd helped design, no longer for spying on neighbors' cassava but for greeting first light. He held a simple tin lantern, the same one from that horrorsome night. Beside him stood Oma, free and fierce, carrying a carpenter's chisel to deliver to her brother. Another day of building awaits. Below, the village stirred, children chasing chickens, definitely chickens, merchants rolling out bean sacks, and a certain goat practicing off-key scales. Adisa grinned. You know, Oma, some folks say darkness is stronger. She tilted her head. And you? He raised the lantern. Dawn ignited its glass in gold. I say secrets fear the light, especially lantern lights held by a nosy bean farmer. The sun crested the hills. Laughter floated up. Somewhere, a rooster greeted morning on perfect pitch, and Senator tried to outsing it. The END.